Ubuntu Courtyard presents The Woman Who Tamed the Lion.
Once upon a time, there lived a lady and her husband in the southern parts of Africa. They had a blissful marriage and on track to living happily ever after. However, as time progressed, the relationship started to turn sour and the husband started ill-treating his wife. It all began with a few hurtful words hurled towards the wife and proceeded to occasional slaps here and there. As time progressed, the husband became moody and withdrawn while drowning his sorrows in the local brew. Because drinking beer became a pastime, his hunting skills soon disappeared. Muvimi, which translated to the hunter, was known in the land for his extraordinary hunting skills. They always had plenty of meat and excess to barter with other people for crops and household items. In those days, money was non-existent, so people used items and foods they produced in exchange for what they needed. As the lovebirds headed towards turbulent times, hunger and poverty followed suit by knocking on their door and became the talk of the village. You see, when the mighty fall, most people derive joy and satisfaction from their demise. The poor woman cried herself to sleep almost every night as Muvimi became more and more distant. Lost in his world of drunkenness, self-loathing, and bitterness, his heart grew colder and as hard as a rock by each day. The damsel in distress eventually came up with an idea which would transform her now cold-hearted and lazy husband into her knight in shining armor. The woman decided to seek answers from a traditional healer. She'd heard many great things about him. In those days, people went to traditional healers for everything that ailed them, from broken bones to hearts. Rumor had it that this healer could perform miracles and change lives. The poor would find themselves rich beyond belief thanks to his powers, which included finding cures for any ailment under the sun. The woman needed a miracle. In fact, she decided to ask for a love potion from the traditional healer. A love potion would definitely do the trick. Excited with the prospect of bringing back joy, love and harmony to her marriage now parked on the rocks, she set off on a long journey to the traditional healer's village. One early morning before the cockerels alerted the villagers of daybreak, in the dark, with nothing but determination to see the healer later that day, nothing would stop her. In those days, animals used to roam freely in the thick jungles, and she easily could have become a meal of a hungry beast on the prowl. Still, she braved her fears and walked for hours until noon. She was later relieved to see smoke rising from inside a little hut where the traditional healer lived. "My lord," the lady called out as she approached the hut with caution, as she clapped her hands 3 times while kneeling on the ground as a sign of respect. Back in the day, that was the protocol for greeting elders and members of the opposite sex. The traditional healer heard a low, harsh voice coming from outside and immediately stepped outside. He was greeted by the sight of a woman who looked as if she was carrying the burdens of this world on her shoulders. She looked hungry and almost faint. He immediately felt sorry for her. "What brings you here, my daughter?" he inquired. "Surely you know of the dangers of embarking on such a perilous journey across jungles infested with predators on your own. What can I do to help you?" The healer seemed like a kind man. It had been a while since anyone had given her a listening ear or showed concern about her well-being. She had isolated herself from her village people in a bid to cope with what was happening in her life. She sensed that she'd become a laughingstock now that her once comfortable life had turned into a misery-filled existence. "I have a deep thorn in my heart and need your help." The lady poured her heart out, detailing her source of pain, from how things used to be until her beloved changed into a very unloving and uncaring husband. She needed help from the healer who had many powers to turn the dire situation in her favor. A love potion was what she needed, to be precise. He listened intently, never missing a word. Years of practice had taught him that this was not an isolated case. Although he was amazed by the woman's bravery, she trekked the thick forests on her own to find a solution to save her marriage. Most people walked in groups. The love she had for her husband was etched on the woman's heart, and he could sense her desire to save her marriage. After much consideration, the healer told her that he was willing to prepare the love potion, but for it to work effectively, he'd need one secret ingredient. Without that ingredient, the love potion would never work. He told her that he needed a few whiskers from a lion's mane. However, there was one condition and one condition only. She had to pluck and collect the hairs by herself and bring them back to him. The love potion would be all hers from then on. Collecting a few hairs from any lion of the jungle meant dicing with her life, the lady thought. One wrong move and she'd become a lion's meal. Still, the allure of a magical love potion to wipe her troubles away was too strong to resist. Besides, she couldn't argue with the wise. And so she decided to give his suggestion a try. She thanked him and walked back to her village. The following morning, she woke up very early in the morning and trekked towards the jungle where lions prowled. She was married to a hunter, so she knew a thing or two about animals of the forest based on the tales they used to share. She studied her environment so well, and after a while came to a lion's den. Peeking through the thick foliage, she studied the lion's movements from a safe distance until she was courageous enough to get closer. Quite a menacing animal it was, but giving up was not an option. A love potion was calling. Let the taming begin. Days weaved into weeks, and the lady kept her persistence. She'd do her chores around the house and proceed to the lion's den. See, she had to keep her tracks covered too. She tried to understand as much as she could about the lion. Making assumptions about its behavior could cost her her life. The more she observed, the more she discovered new leads, such as hunting times and what motivated the lion to behave the way it did. She started feeding the lion with meat obtained from several sources, learned to be resourceful. She had to get the love potion by any means necessary. The lion responded well to the feeding. She'd place it in an excellent location at the right time. Timing was crucial, so she learnt. One day, she gathered the courage to approach it rather slowly, but the lion growled in return, which made her run for dear life. Still, she came back, this time with a sweet melody, and sang for the lion. That seemed to soothe the lion, and before she knew it, she was stroking his mane. By then, she'd developed a loving relationship with the lion, so she made sure he was okay before plucking a few whiskers during grooming. The woman was so happy, such that she began looking forward to seeing the lion and telling her all about its troubles. She sincerely felt sorry for the lion because after a while she'd learned that he couldn't hunt due to an injury. One day, she went back to the healer's village, armed with loads of whiskers and a bucket full of stories about her adventure. The wise healer was happy to see her, this time with disbelief and pride as he listened to her stories. He also noted that the once timid lady looked radiant, comfortable, and above all, had conquered her fears and tamed a wild lion. When it was his turn to speak, he said, "My daughter, I am so proud of what you've achieved. I've given this task to many women who are in a similar predicament, and none of them came back. Pretty sure they wanted the love potion without having to put in any work. I am not capable of making the love potion you wanted to turn your husband. In fact, a love potion is nothing but a myth. But if you listen to what I'm about to tell you, your marriage will be transformed for the better." The woman listened, this time with a bit of patience. It seems her days spending studying the lion had taught her a lot about the virtues of patience. Her old version would have probably given this old man a thing or two about her thoughts. She'd learnt about the power of gentleness, listening, patience, caring, and a simple touch. If it weren't for the fact that she'd fed the lion and took the time to understand all she possibly could about its behaviour, she would have missed that the lion didn't hunt as much as it used to because it had a broken leg. She only got to know that upon getting closer and while massaging its stiff body. She was slightly disappointed by the fact that there would be no love potion. Somehow, it was okay, since she now had a good friend in the form of Mr. Lion. The healer seemed to read her thoughts before proceeding. "My daughter, what you did for the lion is what you need to do for your husband. I believe in you, just as much as I trusted you when I gave you the task. Your heart was always in the right place, and for that reason, I know you're going to be okay. Don't forget to pay me a visit with your husband one day. Go well, my daughter." It took a while to comprehend what Sakuru had said and done, but it made perfect sense. With that awareness, the woman set off home and couldn't wait to put into practice all she'd learnt while taming the lion. It didn't seem like a long time before she noticed changes from her husband. You see, something in her head had changed during her lion encounters, and that hadn't gone unnoticed by her husband. He'd wondered why she seemed so happy, energetic, and so full of vigour, although their marriage was doomed. Bit by bit, that cold heart had started warming up to her, and the woman did all she could to keep the fire burning. One day, the woman took the long journey back to see Sakuru and thank him for his wisdom, with her husband and a baby boy in tow. Muvimi had responded to her gentleness, encouragement, and unconditional love. He vowed to be the best husband, provider, and father he could ever be. They lived happily ever after. For lessons from this story and more, please visit ubuntucourtyard.com. Thank you.